Can we get started, Kruta?
Yeah. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hello to all of them and welcome to the webinar. Good evening and thank you so much for attending the webinar session, and taking out time from your busy schedule on a weekday. So let's get started. So today's webinar's topic is how AI has transformed testing for an Australian fintech client. So to quickly talk about the presenters. So today's session is jointly presented by Qualitrix India and IntelliFacial Australia, and we are doing this in a collaborative manner, and we have delivered the solution jointly to our customer. So to quickly introduce the presenters for today, we have Deva Gowda, who is our QA and AI tech head from Qualitrix. He has an experience of 25 years in engineering, and he has been driving AI initiatives and innovations for global products. And along with him, we have Vikas Kumar, who is the head of partnership and alliances from IntelliFacial, who is our partner. And he comes in with experience of 2 decades across geographies in India, Australia, and US. In consulting background and digital transformation delivery. I will hand it over to Deva to kickstart the session for today. Thank you.
So I was asked to check if, okay, sorry, I'm sorry. I'll just quickly recap. So I'm Deva, and this is the agenda that we wanted to touch upon. And I had just about started talking about Qualitrix as the company. So Qualitrix, we're based out of India. We have offices in the US. We have partnerships with other firms in UK, Australia, and UAE. And one of our Australian partners, IntelliFacial, is the partner for this this interaction with the customer. And we will talk about IntelliFacial post this one. As Qualitrix, we've catered to about 80 odd customers at this point, tested 150 odd applications. We are a pure play technology company in the QA space, right? And we cater to enterprises, GCCs, startups, unicorns, all kinds of enterprises, but in the QA space. And we are very focused on just QA, right? Having said that, just to quickly brief everyone about what we do and where we can help and bring value to your processes. We have quite a bit of these offerings that we come in with, right? One is where we do open source automation. We have a framework called Infinitum, where you can actually automate using any open source framework or language. It's technology agnostic, it's framework agnostic, whether it's Python, whether it's Java, whether it's Playwright or Cypress, any one of those technologies that you choose. We have open source framework that can help you get started and implement it quickly. Along with that, apart from the fact that we have open source, we also have a no code too, right? So you can either choose open source or you can choose no code. And NoGrunt is that AI driven no code automation solution, which is the one we'll also talk about in detail later on. So this was the tool we used to deliver the value to the customer we're talking about. And then moving on, we do continuous QA, which is basically, we can help you do CI/CD pipelines, test microservices, cloud testing, database testing, all kinds of testing. We can provide, turn it on so that, you can schedule it, run it. And so you can do continuous QA versus QA when you can, right? So we offer that. The fourth one is Operites. We offer a customer sentiment analysis platform. So if you have applications and if you have apps that you want to validate how they will be received by the users, Operites is a very good option. So when you're in beta or even maybe just quickly before release, you can launch it on Operites. We have a cohort of over 40,000 users across the world who can come and test that application, use the application, and then give you feedback even before you go live. So even before you go live, you can figure out whether the general sentiment is going to be positive, negative, what are the issues they're finding. And these are actually user feedback. So you get a lot of insights about your app even before it goes live. The next two are largely, people driven. We can provide you with AI-powered testers. So these are, people who can come in who have knowledge and know how to use AI tools to speed up your deliveries. So in that sense, even though you're getting people to help you with it, but they come armed with all of the AI tools, whether it's from reporting to automation to testing to test case generation. They know how to use the tools to deliver faster. So you get a lot of productivity there. The specialists is the other model where we have BA QAs available with a lot of domain expertise, whether it's in the fintech domain, whether it's the media and gaming or health tech. We have prior experience, and so we can come in and speed up all of your processes as we go. And then we also do QA transformation, which is largely consulting. So if you're at a certain place, we can come take a look at, benchmark your current practices and processes and tools against industry benchmarks. And then we can also help you go from where you are to where you want to go based on those benchmarks. We can help you deliver on those goals. And then the last two is performance and security. So we have very focused and very competent teams that do both performance and security. So these are like the 9 different kind of offerings we can offer. And anyone that suits you, we can take it, customize it just for you, and go from there. Right. So that's a brief about what Qualitrix does. We'll move on and quickly talk about Intellificial, and then we'll jump into the actual content. Vikas, do you want to take this up?
Thanks a lot, Deva. Hello, everyone. As Deva was saying, Intellificial and Qualitrix, they have been partnered for a very long time. And coincidentally, both were founded in 2016, right? And the journey has been extremely good for both these companies. I'll talk about Intellificial. You have heard about Qualitrix as of now. So we started in 2016 in Melbourne, then expanding to Sydney. And over a course of last 8 years or so, the 2-3 things that you will notice in our journey is, one is our recognition by different industry forum and research companies. So that is something, a testament to the value that we deliver. And the second is we started off as a QA company, and we still are primarily a QA company. But now we have expanded into automation and AI as well to cover the breadth of services that can align to the things that clients are looking for, right? So from that perspective, what do we offer? So if you look at the bottom left side, essentially what we are saying is there are a portfolio of 4 different category of services that we offer, from automation to QA. And for each kind of offering, it's an end-to-end coverage. We can cover the consulting part, we do implementation, we do operation and management, and we also do training and education for internal employees, externals as well, right? So the idea of value delivery for Intellificial is twofold. One is something what we call is activated intelligence. And I'll take 10-15 seconds just to explain what do we mean by activated intelligence. We believe that every organization goes on a journey of intelligence, and this is an evolution, right? So you think of it as starting as a manual, then going on an automation, and beyond that adding AI and stuff like that. And this webinar, as you can understand, is part of that evolution as well, right? So that is what we, from the Intellificial perspective, we call it activated intelligence. And to activate this intelligence, any solution, any platform that we bring to the table, including the current one, what we ensure is that it's part of S3 framework. What we call is everything has to be sustainable, so that we are looking at a long-term perspective, not just doing a quick and get out. It has to be scalable, so that we are not just doing POC and pilot, but we are actually implementing in the org and getting its benefit. And the last but not the least, everything that we do from services to product, it has to be secure, because all of you are aware the importance of security and how companies have been facing issues because of that, right? So that is the framework within which every product and service that we deliver, we have been giving immense value to our client. And that has been enabled by a lot from the partnership perspective. And Qualitrix has been one of our greatest partner. And as we discuss later, we have jointly done a lot of good work, and we'll talk about some particular cases.
Thank you, Vikas. So jumping into the topic, so I think AI is a buzzword. AI is the next next big thing in the IT industry as of now. And having said that, the question always becomes, because we are very, very QA focused companies, then the question becomes, how does AI play a part in all of this, and what does AI do, and how does AI transform what we do as within our roles, right? And so as of now, I'm sure AI is evolving, and more use cases will start becoming more available over time. I mean, I don't know if you guys were looking at the news just last night. Claude announced that now they can allow, their model can now actually use a computer like humans use, right? They can click like humans click, and they can sift through screens like humans do, right? Not necessarily through a program, but mostly from a UI and from a visual standpoint. So I think over time things will keep improving. But as of now, what is it that AI can deliver, and what is it that we as Qualitrix and Intellificial have delivered is what we can focus on at this point. So the first thing is actually, the first thing that we've all noticed is the speed, right? You can go to ChatGPT, ask it a couple of questions, and immediately get the answer, right? Now, earlier you would have to go to Google, search for it, figure out which answer works for you, and then adopt the answer. But in this case, you'll notice that with AI, speed and precision are two things that kind of come almost already built, right? So which means the question then becomes, can I take my exit criteria? Can I take my requirements and convert it into automation scripts? Can I take my requirements and convert them into test cases? And how quickly can we do that? How fast can I do it? How precise is that going to be? Those are some of the areas where AI is making an impact, right? So, and I'm sure all of you would have noticed, if you go to something like ChatGPT, give it a requirements, ask it for test cases, you'll get test cases. But then obviously the test cases are very generic, because ChatGPT is also generic. It doesn't know enough about your own application, but it can help you generate those test cases. And that's where Qualitrix and Intellificial comes in, because we can take that output and actually infuse that output with specific information, specific context about your application. And because of that, the test cases that are so generated become very, very focused and very tuned to your application. And that's how we are able to use AI to generate test cases that suit and work for your application with speed and precision, right? So that's one of the key things we have seen we've been able to deliver to this customer as part of this, as one of the deliverables from AI. The other part is also then scalability, right? Because now with AI, a lot of the difficult work becomes easy. We're able to do that work fairly quickly. And because of that, now we'll be able to do more work, right? Now, if you take an example, even with this customer's case, they had a few thousand test cases, right? Now, if somebody has to review it, somebody has to generate 1,000 test cases, look at all of these requirements and generate that many test cases, it does take a lot of time. And as humans, over time, we fatigue, we slow down, and it starts taking more and more time, right? So with AI, it's a fairly straightforward process to take it. Once you've defined this process of how you'll take test cases, convert them into, how you'll take requirements, convert them to test cases, take the test cases, and then convert them to scripts. Once you define that process, then it's just a matter of providing all the different requirements that you have. And then as and when you figure out that the training needs to be improved, you provide the training. And now you can start doing a lot of that difficult work, which would have taken us 4 months, now can be done in 2 weeks, right? So because now you can do 2 weeks, you still have the other 3.5 months to do other things. and to go do much deeper work or much larger work, go deep or go big, one of those two, right? So from that standpoint, it helps you scale because now a lot of the difficult tasks, the time-consuming tasks can be done sooner, right? So that's the other piece where AI helped in this case. And definitely from a scalability standpoint, we were able to get thousands of test cases automated in a very meaningful time frame. And when we look at the customer scenario, we will go a little more deeper into that. So we got speed precision, we got scalability, and then the next thing it also helps us in this prediction, right? Because it's able to consume a lot of data, so it can now tell you, here are the errors, here's where you're weak, here's where you're strong, and this is where we got to kind of focus on. So it can help you build those insights relatively quickly. And because of that, you can also address your issues sooner, and then get the results and the ROI that you're looking at much faster. So that's how we used AI to transform and help this this customer achieve their goals. And eventually, what have we delivered? These are some of the things we've been able to deliver. We've given productivity gains, we've given 30x faster testing. We're able to just get through all of the stuff that needed to be done just much faster, right? So those are some of the values we have delivered as part of AI, and we'll now dig a little more deeper into what we did and go from there, right? Just one last slide before we talk about the customer. So in this slide, we're also here, the blue things that you see that's been highlighted here. What you do see here is basically all the different areas in which between Qualitrix and Artificial, we've been able to kind of infuse and put the AI into these areas, right? Whether it's a BRD generator, whether it's a test case generator, no-code, low-code platforms, and then from an execution standpoint, also no-code platforms, and then the user platform. So all of these things have AI embedded within them in order to make things go faster, better, and cheaper. So from that standpoint, whatever service that you choose, we will be able to deliver it on the AI side and use AI to make things go faster and deliver value sooner, right? So that's how we are deploying AI in real world at this point. And now we can jump into the case study and talk about the customer and what we did for them and what we were able to achieve. I'll hand this over to Vikas. And so Vikas, I think there's a bunch of stuff you can go through. Go ahead, Vikas, on the customer side of things.
Thanks a lot, Deva. So as you all have been listening, right? So the proof of the pudding is when you start eating it. So that's what we want to do here. We want to show you how in a particular context with the client, what we did, how did it fit, and what kind of impact it generated, right? So this particular client is a fintech. And if you understand the fintech or even the finance industry, there's a lot of customer-focused digital channels, right? From mobile app to different sort of platforms. So this company is also doing this to continue and to enhance its customer experience. What does this mean? Is essentially you will have a lot of very fast releases, like it happens in most of the apps or website. And like every other company, so when we talk about digital savvy, and this is the real life experience, a lot of savviness goes into the release and development part, not so much on the QA, right? So that is the background of this customer when we started discussing with them. They're doing a lot, so many releases. You need to maintain the different features. There's a lot of integration to maintain, third-party integrations, internal customer experience, right? So all of this becomes priority, and somehow QA takes backseat, right? So that's what our experience has been. So when we connected with this client, they knew us that, okay, we are doing a lot in the QA space. They also knew that we have been developing our capability in AI space. And they were very, very interested to see using AI, how can they catch up, right? So normally, if you are such a company, what you want to do is you want to do maximum with minimum spend. That's the usual thought process, right? So even with a small QA team, they wanted to see that from the current status of not able to cover as many test cases as we can, not able to do the regression to the extent that we can an AI and the platform that you're talking about, can it help us, right? So we said, yes, we did a demo, we had a discussion with them, then we analyzed the fitment and the customer used it, and it generated a lot of impact. So 2-3 points I wanted to talk about. One is essentially the fitment when we talk about, right? So it's not just the exit part, it's entry part also, because any tool, any platform that you introduce, it brings an amount of change with it, And that's why you'll see a lot of hesitation from a customer or any company perspective to bring in a new tool. So what NoGrant does, and what was one of our USP, that it's not a replacement tool, right? It's a tool that can sit within your ecosystem without disrupting your chain. It can connect to the different points of your chain, and it can actually enable it, right? So that was one of the bigger selling point from our perspective. And then obviously with AI, we are talking about increasing the velocity, increasing the productivity, etc. So that came in. But once the entry was eased into, and once we connected to the system, so then there are 2-3 aspects of the NoGrant that actually help. The very first one, because there's a lot of manual development happening, right? So with manual development, it's not possible to do, if you are running a sprint cycle of 2 weeks, it's never possible to do the full-on testing. Maybe you are able to cover the functional one. It's not possible to do the in-sprint regression automation, right? And that is something we took it as a challenge, that using AI, using its velocity, we can enable in-sprint regression. And we did. Within a couple of sprints, we were able to reach to the level where with every new feature release, they were able to do the end-to-end automation. I'm talking about thousands of test cases in that scenario, right? So we were able to get that. The second was the manual testers. They also now, they had a lot of bandwidth free up, right? So it's the one part of automation, as you understand, is not just about building the framework, but using the framework as well, right? So once we enable the regression automation, it freed up the time of manual testers. So they started looking at in terms of much more value add, that what are the things, what are the features that customers regard, and how can we look at overall from a strategy perspective, not just the execution. And the third part was the maintenance. As any of you who has been working in QL understand, even if you can build a test suite, you can build a lot of test cases, maintaining is a lot of headache, right? And that takes a lot of effort. And that is something no one wants to do. So using NoGrant, we actually took care of a lot of maintenance effort. So from these 3 angles, from the speed perspective, from regression automation perspective, from freeing up their time and taking care of the maintenance effort, we enabled a lot of value. And as you can see, from the increase perspective, roughly 5 to 10 times automation increase, roughly 1/10 of a percentage that they used to spend earlier has been reduced. So if you look at these 3 angle perspective, the ROI, there was an immediate ROI, which they could see easily within let's say 3-4 sprint, they were able to see this ROI and realize this ROI very well. And the one point that we always talk about with our clients, that it's possible that in your current scenario, some of the tool may fit in, but in a future point in time, it's quite possible that you have a different roadmap. Right? So that's where the exit strategy comes in place, that am I locked in by the vendor, or do I have the capability to utilize, leverage whatever asset that I have developed? So in this case, especially with NoGrant, you can actually take the output in either Java, Selenium, Cypress, or in Playwright framework, and you can continue your automation if you decide to move out of NoGrant and move to a different tool. And that becomes a very, very differentiator, I will say, because in most of the tool cases that you'll see, whatever asset you develop, after you move out of that platform, it's very rarely you get to use it. So all of the effort that has been spent goes waste. So in case of NoGrant, the entry was eased out because it's not non-disruptive. The implementation was extremely good from velocity and productivity perspective. And exit is a very planned exit where we can take the output and continue with our automation journey. So this entire cycle coverage helped NoGrant delivering the kind of value that we have been talking about. And there I will tell you the details of product, how we actually delivered, which features are being used to do that. But this is the kind of impact we saw at the client.
Thank you, Vikas. Thanks for that introduction to the client and helping us walk through the client's situation and how we fixed it, and obviously the product. And lastly, the last 5-10 minutes of this, this presentation, what we can do now is we can quickly do a review of the product, and then we have a short video that we can show you about how the product is working, and then post that we can do a Q&A, right? So moving on to the product. So basically, NoGrant as a product, it fits very well into your existing ecosystem, and that's one of the key things that Vikas mentioned was what this customer also was looking for. And when we say it fits very well into an existing ecosystem, what we mean is that you can start from wherever you are in order to do the automation. And then you also, once you've done the automation, you can also decide whether you want to do the execution on Nogrand or within your own framework. So it's largely very flexible and fits in with anything that the organization is doing currently, right? So on the left side, you can see we have BDDs. You can start with BDDs or Jira stories. We'll show that in the video. You can also use code comments and then try to decide what needs to be tested. So whether you are a BA, whether you're a developer, whether you're a QA, whether you're an automation engineer, any one of those can start. You can start from anywhere you are today and get the automation done. And then once the automation is done, either on the hyperspeed execution or on the open source code generation, those are where that you can use in order to kind of execute it, right? Either on our system, parallel execution, so you can run a lot of tests very quickly, or you can do open source and take it into your own framework and run it there, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about these when we go through that the video. But for now, just wanted to give you an input, give you an overview that all the things you see on the left are kind of inputs. All the things on the right are your outputs. So input can be anyone. You can start from anywhere, whether you're a BA, whether you are a dev, whether you're a QA, an automation engineer. All of them have their own starting points that you can start from, and then you get your code or you get the execution that can be done on our system. Now, when you use a tool like this, and Vikas also talked about it, and the customer also was looking about it, because eventually everybody wants, the goal of customers is also to, be able to use a dev process that actually works and that doesn't take a lot of overhead in terms of governance to make happen. And so a tool like Nogrand actually enables that, because with this tool, what we've noticed with this customer is within the first 4 weeks, we were able to get through a lot of what they had we were able to get all of that automated. And once we were automated, then within about the week 6 onwards, we were able to take those test suites and keep running them constantly so that we can catch issues sooner. So there was a continuous testing and feedback loop that was built in within about 6 weeks of us coming in. And once that happened, around the 2-month mark, they were able to get to a point where the quality had already increased and improved, where they were to a point where they could prevent defects rather than catch defects. So they were able to left shift QA, provide to the developers everything that's needed so that the developers can ensure that there are no bugs are introduced. Even if bugs were introduced, the in-sprint testing would catch it. And so by the end of the sprint, you do have a good quality code that you can release, right? So they were able to get to that point. And then beyond that, the teams also were able to collaborate better, because now the whole team, whether it's dev, QA, product design, all of those teams were talking about the same feature at the same time, which meant there was more collaboration, there was more communication, and so issues got caught sooner, and they were addressed and kind of able to be delivered, right? So a tool like this not only is an automation tool, but also helps you kind of adopt SOPs for Agile and also build that self-governance in place. So once you get the testing bit sorted, I think the others kind of fall in place because a tool like this enables it. And that's the other benefit of using a tool like Nogrand. So now we will jump into a quick video of the tool. What you see here is actually, we'll just start the demo. And what I'll do is I'll pause and stop so I can talk and tell you what's going on at each point. So the first one, we're going to talk about the test case generation using AI. So in this case, we're going to talk about how you can start with a requirement and get an automated script all within a few minutes, irrespective of how complex your requirements are, right? So this is like one of the screens that you have within the product. And in this screen, what you see here is you actually are bringing in your requirements. So you put in your requirements. It's just like a ChatGPT interface where you have a place for you to put in your requirements, and then you have a button that says generate test cases. And this will go ahead, it'll call the LLM to the context. It'll understand the context, get the response, process it, and eventually from that requirement, you are generated, all the test cases get generated, right? Whether it's 40, 50, 30, based on the requirement, how many of the scenarios you have, they get generated. And you see them in a table. And then you also see who can do it, whether it's a company admin, whether it's a buyer. whatever personas you define in the requirement, it also kind of filters, or it kind of adds that that attribute to each test case. It also adds which device is it going to be run on. Is it going to be run on the web, on the mobile? Is it an API testing? So it adds that, it creates a description, and then it gives you an exit criteria in a BDD format, right? So this exit criteria is what AI has generated. And as a tester, you may not always be happy with what you see. So you do have the option of clicking on this edit the exit criteria option, and then you get a screen where you can go ahead and make the edit. But the key here is once you make the edit, it also asks you for the reason for the edit. So basically at this point, AI realizes that, or the system realizes that maybe we didn't really generate it as well as we should have. So it asks you for that, for the reasons. And once you provide the reason, it will be able to take it and learn from it so that the next time it doesn't make the same. With your exit criteria, obviously, this is showing those filtering options where you can filter. But once you're happy with the exit criteria, you can select a bunch of test cases that we generated, and you can say, script the scenario for us. So once you say that, it'll actually go ahead and script the scenario. Like you see here, you get these automation scripts. And this actually, for this application, this is a test application that we're showing here. For this application, these are the actual steps that need to be done to achieve this test case, right? So this test case is the one where we're trying to generate QR codes. And there's a list of steps that you need to follow in order to actually generate those, generate QR codes in the application. So what you've noticed here is we started off with the requirements. From the requirements, we got the test cases. With the test cases, you have the ability to update the test cases and correct them. Once you're happy with the test cases, you can actually generate the automation scripts immediately. And all of this takes just a couple of minutes. And once you're there, you can then say, if you're happy with the automation scripts, you can go ahead. Otherwise, if you have this option here to actually edit it. And once you are happy and you want to move ahead, you have this option here to say, save the script. So basically, then it takes all the scripts that you've selected and it creates the test case. So now you can either execute it in Nogrant, or you can ask it to generate the code. So you can then download the code and execute this within your own framework, right? So it's fairly straightforward in that sense, starting from your requirements all the way to getting your, the test cases created, the automation scripts generated, and then adding it to the system. And once it's added to the application, it's your choice. You have the option here to actually do the execution. You can either do execution, or we will show you in a later snippet where you can actually click a button, download the code, and use that code within your own framework. Right. So this is about how we generate test cases using AI. Now, so that would be something that the BAs would use, let's say, or even like senior automation engineers would use. But then if you're an automation engineer and you want to use, this is the other approach that you can use. This is a bot-based approach where, you can actually show us what you want to do. We record that, and then we create the test cases based on that recording. But then once we create that test case, we also give you as much flexibility as you have when you code it, right? Like when you write Selenium script, when you write Cypress scripts, the amount of flexibility you have in terms of what you can do in each step, you have the full control. So you can do a quick recording, and then it creates the test case where you have full control. So not only do you get speed, you also get the flexibility so that you can automate quicker, right? So in this case, this is mostly for the automation engineers, even for manual testers and others, but anyone who wants to do automation who would use this approach. This is this application under test. And as you can see here, you use this application like a normal user. You're entering username, entering password, you click on login. And once you're done with all of that, we do have a Chrome extension that you would go into, and you would say, start recording, stop recording. So that's where it's watching and learning and creating the scenarios. And once that is done, you can come into our application, and within our application, you will see all of those scenarios have been created. You see them within the application. We have a test studio where you would use that. You go to the test studio to see your test case. And then once the test case has been recorded, you can search for a test case. and then you can also execute it from here, right? So basically, you can record it. Once you record it, you come to Nogrant, and within Nogrant, the test case is visible and available. And then once you're happy with it and you've done all your setup, you can then go ahead and run it. And when it runs, it'll run the whole scenario, and then it gives you screenshots. You can see the screenshots, and then also, you have these options to kind of take a look at the log file. So basically, what we're talking about here is, it's very easy for you to kind of record the scenario. You have full flexibility with any scenario that you record. You can also run that scenario on Nogrant. Once you run it, you get screenshots and a log file in order to do debugging. And so once all of that is done, you can also do the maintenance of scenarios within Nogrant. So what we spoke about now is just now is also it's a no-code tool. So anyone within the organization, whether it's the automation engineers, manual engineers, all of you can use it in order to do the automation. We'll move to the next segment, which is the self-healing bit. So one thing that you noticed is that you're using your application under test like a normal user, and as you're using it, all you're just using it like normally, but then the system is recording so much information about each of your clicks, that we are able to figure out multiple ways in which to identify your scenarios, your elements, and because of that, we're able to build the self-healing capability, right? Here, what you're seeing now is, obviously for each, I'll just go one step more back. Right. So here, what we're doing is we're actually going into one particular step, and in this case, it's step number 2. Once you go into that step, you have 3 tabs, screenshots. You get to see the screenshot of that page or that element, wherever it is. In this case, it's the login username field. And then you can also edit all the metadata that's been collected. Remember, all of this data has been collected by just one click. So you're using your system normally, and then in the background, all of this data is being collected. And so, we'll just show you all the different metadata that you can see. You have the element details, you have the test data. But then this is where it gets interesting, right? You have an element locator field that has multiple choices here, right? Now, these multiple choices that you see is basically option back to you in order to decide what is your preferred option, whether you want to use XPath, you want to use XY, you want to just use the name of the element, you can choose that. But then this data also goes back into our ML model, so that if the element is not found on the screen, then how do we ensure that using AI, we can actually do self-healing? That all of that info also feed into our ML model, so that AI can then self-identify and self-heal itself in order to present back to you your element, so your tests are not as flaky as they might otherwise be. So that's with how the self-healing works. We'll now talk about how the code generation works. And frankly, in the case of code generation, there really isn't much. As you record, you do the recording, and when you come into this part of it, you see there are a bunch of options here for you to download. And there's one that says download code. So ideally, your product will be set up saying, I'm a Java Selenium. We need Java Selenium code, or we need Cypress code, or we need Playwright code. So you can come in here, select it, and it's as simple as that. You select it, you click that button, it downloads a fully functional production-ready code for you, which you can add it into your framework and use it from there. So, there's not a lot to talk about there, because you just get the code, you can put it into your framework and run from there. The next segment will talk about the Copilots, and in this case, basically, we're talking about how we can, kind of help you generate NLP steps for your test cases. Obviously, we just spoke about how you can download code. We're also talking about how you can generate manual test cases, right? Because since we have all the steps needed for that scenario, we can also help you get a summary of all those steps put together, so that can become your manual step, right? So now with one recording, you can either get code, you can also get manual test cases, because AI will take those steps, summarize it for you, and provide it to you. And also, we also support the page object model, right? So you can also download POM files that download the code, you can download any test steps. So all of this stuff is enabled because AI can then take your test steps and convert it for you, so that you get what you need in terms of your end code, right? Whether it's manual test cases, whether it's code with POM files. So whatever is your choice, it can provide that to you. Next, we'll quickly look at what we call as an impact analyzer. And this is where we spoke about earlier, where we said, if you're a developer, you can help speed up the process of how we can kind of test and automate quickly, right? So in this case, what you're seeing is we have multiple cognitive sources where, you can either use OpenAI, you can use your own model. So you have a choice. You can pick any one of these. So if you pick a model, you pick a code base or a repo. In this case, we pick the GitHub repo, and then you can provide as date range, right? Usually it's a sprint, or it's maybe for a build, so you can give us in this case, it's a 2-week sprint. So you pick those time periods, and then you can ask the system to go out to GitHub, look for that repo, and pick up all the changes that have been made to that repo in this time period. So that way, what happens is we get a list of everything that's happened in that time period, and we can take those comments, go back into the system, provide it to AI, and say, this is what was checked in. Can you tell me what test cases are required to run these tests? And AI will do the matching and provide back to you all the test cases within your system that match these set of requirements. So that way, you have a good starting point for identifying what needs to be kind of tested, right? So you know what needs to be tested and what can be tested. And if you have done your test case design correctly, not only will it identify all the impacted areas, it will also identify all the dependent scenarios, right? So that way it gives you a full pyramid of here's all the stuff we've identified, and here's all the stuff that is dependent on these test cases. So as a tester, you have a full view of what needs to be tested, how much of it, and you can move from there, right? So at this point, we've come to the end of all the AI portions in the application that we can talk about. Obviously, this one talks about integrations, and like we said, one of the key things is we fit into your existing ecosystem, whatever it is. So whether it's a project management tool, whether it's a communication tool, whether it's a CI/CD pipeline, your code repo, we can integrate with all of them and provide you a more seamless experience, right? So having said that, I'm going to stop there because the rest of it is just normal flow. And at this point, we can stop and maybe take any questions that may have come up as part of this conversation, right? So do we know how to do the question thing? So Ruta, can we see what questions are there? Okay. So because I think there's one question that's come up, and this is about, you spoke about the exit criteria. Sorry, you spoke about how there is an exit plan. And so this question is talking about when we say exit, in what all languages can they exit and what all frameworks can they exist was the question. So in the case of this customer, can you share what they did, and I can share what are the other options there?
Yes, so thank you, Deva. So in this particular case, the customers, so obviously, as I was talking about the automation team, they started building stuff on Selenium, right? So the exit plan is we'll take in the Java Selenium as an output, and they can continue their automation journey. But I know the tool has much more capability, and Deva, you can talk about, we have other frameworks to support as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think like I said, this customer was a Java Selenium, so we generated Java Selenium. We have other customers who are doing Playwright, TypeScript and Playwright, Python, JavaScript. So in this case, literally any one of those automation frameworks and open source tech stacks that are used, we can generate code. And frankly, if there's something that we don't do today that you would like, it's probably a couple of days worth of work for us to just do the output, because eventually we have the model in place, and so it's just ensuring that we can give it to you in that syntax. So that's not such a big issue for us that we can. It's something that we can very easily address and kind of provide back, right? So let's see what are the other questions we will have. Okay. Any other questions, Ruta?
No, not yet.
So this one, the other one that I can see here talks about, there is this question about what's the reliability when we're using AI, right? So this question, I think, who asked this definitely has been using ChatGPT and kind of realizes there are still some challenges out there in terms of ChatGPT, what it does, and how do we know that this output is the right output. So the answer to that question is, eventually as a tool, the AI models are powerful, but they're not accurate, they're not perfect. So they today can only get you 70-80% out there. So what tools like Nogrant would do then is we would take that 80%, 70% that we can get from AI, and then we build our own models around it so that we can understand the output. From the output, we can figure out what's broken, what are the potential breakages that happen. And based on that, we will also write our own programming to ensure that on top of what we get from the LLMs, we can also kind of overlay our context on top of it. And eventually in all of this, the key is going to be the application context. And what does the application do? What is the application? What are the screens and what does it achieve in each one of those? What's the business context? All of that becomes very, very relevant in order to get from the 70% to 90% or 80% to 90% as the case might be. So tools like Nogrant then add a layer of taking what LLMs provide in order to ensure that your what you see is much closer to what you want. And as the more you use, the better it gets, because we start realizing patterns. We start realizing, here are the points that are missing, so we can train it better and then start getting much better results. So when you start off on day one, you'll probably be 95-97% accurate, and then over time you can kind of try and get it all the way to the 100%. Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a question by Amol Tari. He's asking about what are the performance testing capabilities of the tool.
So from a performance testing standpoint, we do all kinds of performance testing, right? Whether it's a web application, whether it's a mobile application, whether it is API testing, we can do all of that, and we have different tools that fit each one of those much more better. So we do based on that, I pick the right tool based on the load patterns. We can pick the right patterns, apply it, and then do the testing, right? So whether it is I want a web testing, I just want API testing, I want mobile testing, we can do all of that. Plus, along with this, we can do like SOAP testing. We can also do like something that like 2x the peak, 4x the peak, based on how much has been provided, what is your need. We can do those kind of long running tests, or we can do like spike tests where we do a lot of spiking and check how does the system perform. And through this performance testing, you can also test the auto scalability of your frameworks. So we can do all these kinds of testing that, eventually as a customer, whatever your need is, we can kind of fine tune it to that need and to that specific scenario. But we'll reach out to you after this to understand a little bit more on what exactly is the need. And we can definitely provide back to you how we can address that.
Yeah. So we have another question. How UI or API and load testing, I think, is the same, can be achieved with this?
Repeat that again, Ruta. I think it's raining outside, so it's
How UI or API and load testing can be achieved with this?
Achieved using
the solution.
Okay, so it's generally how do we do load, UI, and API testing?
Yes.
So like I said, we just discussed how we would do load testing for any one of these applications, right? Whether it's an API, mobile, or web, you have different tools that suit them. So we pick the appropriate tool based on a consultation with the customer and what the ask is and what the expectation is. We pick the right tool. And then based on that tool, then obviously we need to look at data, right? How is your system today performing? What's your peak load? What's your peak number of users? How much is the concurrency? What are all the features that are concurrent? What are the heavy features? So you do a profiling of your app and then match it to what's the expectation. And since we also have agreed, we'll figure out the right tool. we can bring all this together and run it, and then we provide you with very, insightful metrics and reporting that tells you whether, at what points are you seeing issues, so you can correlate with either users or memory usage or maybe a particular feature. Then based on that, the fixes can be made. Okay. So Ruth, I think we should definitely reach out and understand a little bit more and provide some more context. But can we move on? Do we have any other questions?
None as of now.
Okay. Fair enough. So I think we're almost at time. So thank everyone for your time. Hopefully it was useful. And please do reach out to us if you have any further questions, you need a demo, you have any other evaluation you would like to do. We'd be very happy to kind of look at it and work with you to understand that. We can take it from there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.